you make a distinction in the book between politeness and civility. So now there are some things at dinner that you're not supposed to do, right? You're not supposed to grab someone else's food. You're not supposed to put your elbows on the table, really. You're not supposed to eat too quickly. Explain the difference in politeness and civility in the context of a dinner party.
So in the context of a dinner party, politeness would be the manners, the etiquette, the decorum, whereas civility would be your approach to the dinner party itself, your attitude, your disposition towards your fellow dining partners. It would be more focused, it would be less focused on the minutiae of the proprieties themselves and more focused on the norms to the extent that they facilitate conversation and foster trust and friendship and the enjoyment of the evening. So one example I give in my book, I have handy little chart that has the difference between the civility and politeness with some examples in my introduction of my book. And I use the example of a dinner party. So say that you're sitting next to someone and you notice them commit a egregious faux pas. This is a very elevated dinner party, and you see the person next to you, for example, they tip what is a finger bowl in front of them to their lips and drink it as though it were soup. Okay? Just not done. It's obviously a finger bowl. But so a polite person might, see that faux pas, that violation of social norms, and smugly, judge the other person as a member of the uninitiated and feel self-righteous in their knowledge of the rules of etiquette and politeness that make them feel superior and better and morally better than their dining compatriot. The civil person would ignore the faux pas, or possibly like take them aside and say, actually, that's a finger bowl, just so they don't, embarrass themselves or make the mistake again in the future. But this gets to several core ideas about the difference between civility and politeness, that politeness is about the act, it's technique, it's external, whereas civility is internal. It's less about what you do and more about why you do it. And so one thing I say throughout the book is that civility sometimes demands being impolite, breaking rules of propriety and etiquette in order to actually respect someone, to actually foster friendship or conversation, or actually. So in that case, even though it might be uncomfortable or even considered rude to call someone out, even though it's privately for breaking, making a faux pas, that might embarrass them, but it's risking that embarrassment for the sake of actually respecting them.
Forgive me, but I seem to remember Queen Victoria or there was some queen or some a royal queen who this happened at a dinner, and the right response is to pick up your finger bowl and drink it yourself, because that instantly diffuses because the point is to make a guest in your home feel completely comfortable, not out of place.
Here's the story that Queen Victoria was having a state dinner, and she had the Queen of Persia to her home. And of course, this is Queen Victoria presiding over Victorian England, like very attentive to these elaborate arcane proprieties and social expectations and rituals. So the Queen of Persia sits down to dinner and does the unthinkable. She takes the finger bowl and tips it to her lips and sips it like soup. The room is aghast. What is Queen Victoria going to do? She surprised the room by taking the finger bowl and tipping it to her own lips as well. Like, she broke this convention, maybe even her own convention. Why? For the sake of friendship, for the sake of community, for the sake of making her guest feel welcome and building trust and having conversation. And
so that's being civil rather than polite.
Exactly.
So if you're sat next to someone who's a real bore, and they keep talking to you, and you talk to the person opposite you, that's also uncivil, right? We have to engage everyone around us equally, or we're being rude.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
If you ignored the person next to you who was a complete bore, who was going on about something, and you just started talking to the person across the table from you because you couldn't bear this conversation, that would be uncivil, right? As well as impolite.
Probably, but I don't have a lot of tolerance for boorish people. I feel like I'd find some sort of excuse to engage the person on the other side of me instead.
Well, then you break your own rules. I mean, it also seems to me that
I do so all the time. I know.
Right, but you also want to say that we should be nice to people because it comes genuinely from within. We don't have some sort of hypocrisy involved in this, where we're thinking, God, what an awful bore this person is. Meanwhile, we are talking to them as if they're the most interesting person in the world. Now, that strikes me as hypocrisy, but it's a good form of hypocrisy.